Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host Daniel Greene, and today I want to start off with a quick apology for my last Wheel of Time video. So, I get there was a lot of people complaining there were way too many ads at first, and I agree. What happened is essentially I had a fever while editing it and was up late, put it up to be released, and forgot to manage the ads. YouTube has really upped how many ads they are automatically placing in a video if you do not manually go in and limit it. Yes, it works that way. They flood it, and for all of my videos, I have to then go in, remove a bunch, and it's frustrating. They also have this new auto placement feature that's getting controversial, and is why you'll probably see more YouTubers have pauses suddenly in their videos, like this. Elliot Brooks has a wonderful video kind of further breaking down the situation. I'll have that link down below if you want to check it out. But I do just want to say, no, I'm not going to suddenly be upping the amount of ads in my videos a ton. It was simply a mixture of me editing late, being sick, and preparing a video for release, and forgetting one important step. If you want to know how many ad breaks they actually automatically place, because you don't get served every single time an ad break is put in, it's weird. There was actually 12. Put on this video by YouTube. I have now dropped it down to 7 because that is a far more reasonable number. And so if you watch it, you'll probably get between like 3 to 4. That's my guess because again, they don't tell us stuff. But now let's jump into the fantasy news. And we're gonna go ahead and kick it off with one serious AI story that's not actually bad, and then followed up with a fun, interesting one from Stickadabiggle. And this first story involving AI actually comes from the publishing company Wiley that mainly focuses in academic areas of publishing. But don't worry, what they're putting out here still has relevance to the ongoing developing discussion for AI and publishing as a whole. For those of you who don't know Wiley, they've been around since 1807, and they're a pretty big deal in the spaces they operate in. And what they have done, at least for their own publishing, and I hope more houses actually look at this, is set out guidelines for acceptable uses of AI for authors. And no, this is not something I'm against. In fact, I actually think it's a good step forward. I've read through their guidelines. It does not seem to be a perfect system for me yet, but this is happening, right? Like, I try to be realistic when I have these conversations around artificial intelligence, and Pandora's box has been opened. I'm completely against stuff that is just crapped out by AI, given a light once over from an author, and actually pretty far from that standard as well. But what Wiley seems to be doing is, hey, write something, yeah, maybe have AI enhance your overall author voice, not that much, and then you control the final product and take responsibility for each and every single line gone through once more time before you put it out. That's way overgeneralizing and boiling down these points. I recommend you give it a look yourself, but they're also trying to put in additional advice here on how to avoid unethical uses of AI and keep it within professional publishing standards. I do not think this is a complete solution, no doubt, and every publisher is going to have their own standards brought in for this. There's probably going to be some that are completely against it and others that just open the door for artificial intelligence writing massive swaths of text. Editing Daniel here to come in and be a little more sour on this because I just found out that Wiley also entered a $44 million partnership deal with an AI company and is not allowing authors signed to them to opt out, which I am very much so against. But what I'm trying to get at when it comes to these standards is I do believe that publishing houses should create an open, transparent dialogue about what they are allowing their authors to do versus other publishing companies. That way you as a consumer can be informed. And the reason I seem a little more relaxed with Wiley is, yes, they're in the education and information space, not creative writing. And I don't want to talk authoritatively about what's right and wrong for AI there because I don't know as much as when it comes to like the spec fic space. Personally, I'd be a bit more stringent than they are here, but they're also not talking about a space like I tend to be focused on, which is fiction, and they're looking for more academic and instructional materials, which, yeah, I could see an argument that to some degree AI could do more filling in as long as you, yes, are fact checking every single thing and putting in the greater effort. As I said, it's going to depend on the publishing and the space that we're talking about operating in. The big takeaway though is I hope more publishers are following in Wiley's steps. This is something almost every single one, if not all of them, need to address if this technology is going to continue to exist in the modern world. Here's their chart. That's kind of boiling it down. Let me know your thoughts on this. Where do you land on like how much AI you're willing to have like impact your writing? Because I do think it is a bit crazy to be like, they can't have it at all. I'm curious to see if we come to some kind of consensus here, specifically talking about not the space Wiley operates in, but fiction writing. But now an oh so fun update that I want to give my thoughts and opinions on. Brandon Sanderson has released his list of the top 10 video games of all time. And I do want to make it clear, this list is not to be like an objective 10 best, but what Sanderson considers to be like the most impactful on himself. So totally fair. The man is a monolith within the fantasy community, and I'm sure some of these have influenced and inspired him. So let us take a look at what Sander Bander has decided are the top 10 games that have ever existed in the digital space. At number 10, we have Katamari Damacy, which unfortunately never even heard of before this. Then we have 9, Undertale, very good pick. At 8, we have Fallout New Vegas, another solid pick. It's the one Fallout game I believe I've completed. 7 is Super Mario World, which is like kind of a thing where it's like if you don't put a Super Mario game in your top 10, it's a little weird, but at the same time, this is a really good Mario pick. The Curse of Monkey Island. I think I've heard of this one. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is like my unpopular opinion in the video game world. I don't love Breath of the Wild because it's too free. I can't be in games that are this open world because I start feeling directionless and unmotivated, which is me. That's a me fault. I like to be on a path. For me, Elden Ring is kind of the perfect balance of like, yeah, you have ways to go, but it is technically an open world. Halo 2. Yeah, outstanding pick, one of the best shooters of all time, and yeah, maybe still the best Halo game? Although the one I've replayed the most is the original Halo, because I don't know, that's like a comfort game for me. At number 3, Final Fantasy X. Never played a Final Fantasy game in my life. Number 2, Bloodborne. One of the few Souls games I've not played, and now this makes me really want to pick it up. I think I've done Dark Souls 1, touched Dark Souls 2 but didn't finish it, finished Dark Souls 3, and I've got like 80% of the way done with Elden Ring. And at number 1, Civilization 6. Last Civ game I played was 5, I believe. And yeah, they are hyper addictive. It's like the textbook definition of a game where you go like, oh yeah, I'll just play this for an hour. It's a week later and I've not seen the sun. At least that's my experience with Civilization, where I will sit down and the whole time I'm just mildly frustrated and like engaged, and I don't think that much time has passed, and then suddenly I've skipped meals. That's the way to get me to play a game for an extremely long period of time. Don't make it really fun, make it mildly frustrating. And just continuing the songs, I think it's fun, and I'd love to see your top 10s as well. Mine, in no particular order, goes Baldur's Gate 3, which if I had like been able to create the perfect game for me, it likely would have been this. Mass Effect 2, which was like the first game I remember growing up playing that I was maybe legitimately addicted to, followed up by Time Splitters 2, which I had so much fun on the GameCube playing with my friends in the basement for endless hours. I really loved like the Siege, Helm's Deep type game mode as well. Oh my god. Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is where my like love of super competitive games definitely started. Cyberpunk 2077, which as it's been upgraded throughout the years since release, has solidly become maybe my favorite story in games once they add in the Phantom Liberty expansion. Rainbow Six Siege, which is where my current addiction for hyper competitive games rests. Age of Empires 2, which was my first RTS that I was just obsessed with before Age of Mythology kind of took over, but Age of Empires 2 was way more important for my early game development. XCOM, which was my first turn-based strategy addiction and is why I still love that genre. And then finally, Dark Souls 3, which if you watched me stream on Twitch playing through that game, the elation that I was able to achieve finally beating bosses in Dark Souls 3 is a high I do not know if I will ever be able to recapture. Let me know what you think of this new camera angle. What are your top 10 most important games to your game love development? And in major author deal news, we have had it confirmed that Jay Kristoff has signed a 7-figure deal with St. Martin's for his next fantasy trilogy, which has yet to receive a title, described as Game of Thrones meets Suicide Squad. And this also included an additional standalone novel with a tentative release date for this batch from Jay Kristoff beginning to be published in 2027. Congratulations to Jay Kristoff, and I am tempted to try Empire of the Vampire. I know I wasn't the biggest fan of Nevernight, but enough people have told me that Empire of the Vampire is dope as hell that I'm kind of feeling it. What would you all pitch Empire of the Vampire as if you've read it? But then in just a random rambly rant I'm getting together after having finished my 3-episode watch-alongs of Wheel of Time, I just wanted to kind of record a reaction story to the reaction the internet is having to the Wheel of Time, because it's kind of warmed my heart to see how many people are just kind of like spreading the word, excited that Wheel of Time, as so many articles are saying, has found its stride. Granted, it's only 3 episodes of a whole season. Lord knows if it'll hold up all the way to the end. I certainly hope it does, and how strong the setup has been for this early season, it kind of indicates that it might be. These first 3 episodes are my top 3 episodes of the Wheel of Time, and it's been amazing to see like the internet's reaction. Like this top post on r/fantasy is like, the Wheel of Time is pretty good now, and you should check it out. The rumor floating around, God knows if it's true, is that season 3 needs to hit season 1 numbers for it to get renewed for season 4. I really hope that's the case. I would hate for the show to finally like find its stride and have its legs cut out from under it. And just from my perspective, someone who kind of felt like they got pushed into the deep end of the weird culture war bullshit that Wheel of Time got swept up in for a couple of years, I don't think I've ever really spent like a whole video, certainly not on this channel, getting into what exactly like a book or a series can mean to you. And the Wheel of Time kind of like saved my life, not like literally, but emotionally, certainly, because it was the first series I picked up when I was a little kid and my family was going through rough stuff. I reread it when my parents split. I read it again when my best friend died in college. And it's just been a series that I have returned to time and time again when I need to just escape. And obviously, these last few months have been really hard for Kayla and I, and you know, we've had to fight these false allegations and stuff, and being able to sink back into the Wheel of Time and share it with people and have the like positive response that I was really hoping I would get when the show first premiered has just been like, I don't know, a really bright beacon in the middle of a storm. It's just like my whole channel for so many years was geared towards Wheel of Time, and it feels like we kind of get to sink back into something that's so comfortable for me. Sorry, I don't remember everything from the books perfectly. It is a big series, and I've got a lot of lore in here now from other worlds, but I'm trying my best. I just wanted to say it's normal for books to mean a lot to you. And I know I've seen so many posts on various like niche subreddits for series being like, this is like my like therapy. And like, yeah, books can mean that. Like they can just, I don't know, have this place in your mind and heart where no matter how dark things get, you can escape. You know, they won't solve the problem, but they can give you that emotional deep breath you need to step back into the ring with life. And that's the magic of speculative fiction for me, at least. Yeah, I'll always love Wheel of Time for that reason. So back to the regular fantasy news. Sorry for getting sappy. This is going to take us to the cover reveals this week, and I'm sorry to say to all the other covers that are going to be revealed, there's kind of a ringer in this batch, and it's unfair. It by default gets best cover of the week, and you'll know it when you see it. But the first cover we're talking about this week is going to be Honey Eater, coming to us from Kathleen Jennings with art by Lindsay Carr. And whoa, any other week, this might take the cake for me. I think this is so striking, this kind of beautiful, elegant portrait that has these subtle colors and tones, but at the same time, kind of hits as disturbing because of what's happening to this person's face. In terms of just hitting a vibe, this cover is like genuinely a 10 out of 10. I think that is gorgeous and creepy. For this next cover, I'm actually a little confused why the artist isn't tagged, and it might still be intentional, so I'm not going to criticize it. But Tor also put out the cover for The Legalist, a novel in the Grand Illusion by L.E. Modesett Jr. And even in a post where they credit like the artist for a bunch of other books, this one is left off. And so maybe there's like a choice there. I'm not entirely sure, so I'm just gonna say I do think it is a very nice looking cover. It is giving me Mistborn Era 2 vibes for very obvious reasons. And the fact that it's like divided in like a warm and cool tone way, I think has a really nice effect overall. But this is going to take me to easily the best covers of the week, and yes, it's plural. And that is because the Broken Binding has dropped their set finally for Christopher Paolini's The Inheritance Cycle. I don't love every piece we've seen for their interior illustrations, but in terms of the big old dragons on the covers, there's not a lot of room to complain. With art by Jeff Brown and Renee Agner, this looks extraordinary. And the extra chunky dragon on the last one, there's a good dragon. Each dragon's actually fantastic here. But the specs on this are going to include, they're going to be signed, new cover art, additional set of jackets featuring the original cover art, PLC boards illustrated by Jeff Brown, digital edges, block sprayed top to bottom, illustrated in papers, and 3 black and white interior illustrations per book. And they are royal hardbacks with head and tail bands. The color palette here is kind of striking me as like regal, almost elven. I don't know exactly how I can even put into words why those words are coming to mind. It's not what I would have chosen immediately, but I think the execution of it, especially on the covers and them out together, looks awesome. But stepping on out of the cover reveal news, I actually have a little bit of a correction from a previous episode of Fantasy News, where I just made an assumption, and the comments were even like predicting I'd be wrong about this, and you all were absolutely right. And that's because it was announced that there's going to be another adaptation of Starship Troopers directed by Neill Blomkamp. And my reaction to that was like, why? I mean, the satire of the movie is perfect and you can't really tell that same joke again, but it has been confirmed that this is actually going to be a faithful adaptation of the books, which makes complete sense because Paul Verhoeven's movie was just pretty much not the story. You could say it's tangentially inspired by, but it's also proof that you don't always need to be hyper faithful to the source material. In some instances, especially if you have just like a different artistic intent from go, which is what I hope is happening to the upcoming Greta Gerwig Narnia adaptation. But yeah, I've kind of been brought on board where seeing a faithful Starship Troopers adaptation is one, not only going to be, super distinct from Paul Verhoeven's, but also probably spawned a bunch of interesting YouTube videos where people try and compare the contrast the two. And I always enjoy when that is done. But in the biggest movie news of the week, we have had the full cast list and some set photos released for the upcoming Odyssey adaptation. We now know that Matt Damon is set to play Odysseus, but the continued cast list includes Tom Holland as Telemachus, and in this released photo, Tom Holland has never looked more like a hobbit. Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Lupita Nyong'o as Clytemnestra, Benny Safdie as Agamemnon, Charlize Theron as Circe, and Zendaya as Athena. And then for cast members who we don't know exactly what they're playing, we have Robert Pattinson, John Bernthal, John Leguizamo, Elliot Page, Amish Patel, Billy Irwin, Samantha Morton, Jessica Garcia, Will Yoon-hee, Rafi Gavron, Chilo Fernandez, Mia Goth, Corey Hawkins, Nick E. Tarabe, Jimmy Gonzalez, Marie Kep, Michael Valmis, Ida Goldberg, Josh Stewart, Cosmo Jarvis, and Ryan Hurst.
We've had a hard day, but we got through it.
And Nolan will be writing and directing this, so yeah, probably going to be an epic. But then in some fun, quickie news, we have also had it announced that there's going to be a 4K remastering of Studio Ghibli's masterpiece, Princess Mononoke, released in IMAX theaters March 26. We have also had a trailer drop for the anime adaptation of All You Need Is Kill. And then yes, to the delight of Rick Riordan fans around the world, Percy Jackson has officially been confirmed for a season 3 over on Disney+. Hells yeah. I've just heard really, really great things about this adaptation, so I'm thrilled that fans have finally got something that feels more like it is successfully bringing the books to life than the previous adaptations that were attempted, though I've heard those adaptations still do have their fans as well. I think I'm just still most impressed by how quick the turnaround was on this. It seems like just last year, right? We were covering that this was planned to be done by Disney+, and now it's already on its 2nd season, right? God damn. Maybe it was further back than that.
Oh, that's wrong, isn't it?
Oh, it's launched in 2023, which means it was announced way before that. Time is just one big illusion now. But that is going to be where I'm ending fantasy news, y'all. I had a fever last night and I am just still feeling blah. But if you would like to see some more on my face, we did watch-alongs for all 3 of the new Wheel of Time episodes that dropped, and it is shockingly improved than previous seasons. Go ahead and give that a look. And then we've recently reviewed The Dollmakers and Blood Over Brighthaven, and up next is going to be the 7th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. And then after that, I'll be reviewing Angie Kills a King and Mushroom Blues. That's my TBR update.
And today's Indie Pub promo is Spectral by A.J. Cerna. Pitched as for fans of Persona 5 and Blue Exorcist, and is available on Royal Road. Her entire life, Luna has been haunted by some faceless entity that strips her of any sense of happiness. It rears its ugly head in the best of times and every other time in between. In spite of that, she's managed to make it by, just barely. But when she wakes up to her house burning down around her, it throws her into a world of supernatural forces. Suddenly, she finds herself in the company of mediums, agents who will kill ghosts and consume their essence to further power their own superhuman abilities. In this, Luna sees a chance to put an end to her troubles completely. If she joins this world of mediums, will she finally be able to rid herself of this mysterious entity that's been haunting her entire existence? Check it out in the links down below.
But like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and get a soon-to-be-released watch-along with Kayla and I for The Rocketeer. And have a good one, y'all. Peace. And because people ask every time I put something new on my shelf, it's a glowing knight chess piece that I got from Gorilla Chess, which is a local business here in Rochester. Not a sponsor, but if you want one, they're over at Gorilla Chess, and they're pretty neat. You can also get a night one, which makes it a night light. But bum.